My husband left me for my mother and then crawled back when he found out that she didn't get the inheritance, and I got everything. Hi, I'm currently in deep shit because of my crazy mother and my equally stupid future ex-husband, who teamed up to completely destroy my peace of mind for their greed. I would love to talk about this with friends, but it's too personal and too humiliating crap to discuss with anyone in real life. And trust me, you'll understand why I say that when you hear what I've been through. I practically have no family, so there's no one to talk to. That's why I'm here, just to vent, and also to make sure I'm not some kind of monster like they're trying to portray me. It all started just 2 weeks ago when, completely out of the blue, my husband of 3 years announced that he wanted to break up with me because he had developed feelings for my mother. Let's call this scumbag Kevin. Yes, you heard that right, and no, it's not a joke. Believe me, I was in the same shock as you are now, only with so much disgust when he laid it on me. He said they'd been having an affair for 3 months. I didn't notice anything because I was busy with work, and he was acting completely normal. There was nothing suspicious. For context, my mother is only 20 years older than me. I'm 27 now. She's 47. She had me when she was still in college. My father left her the same day she told him she was pregnant, but she just needed an excuse to drop out of college back then, so she decided to keep the baby and told her mother, my grandmother, that she wanted to be a single mother. My grandparents were wealthy enough to allow her that, although they were against her decision to drop out. They tried to persuade her to go back to college after I was born, but she refused. My mother tried a bunch of professions before finally settling on interior decorating. No, she's not an interior designer. She doesn't design anything. She just advises people where to put furniture and how to decorate a room to make it look pretty. Rich people crap, basically, but she's not bad at it. She's not a professional. She has no diploma. But since my grandfather was a well-known realtor, he threw clients her way. My mom is the most unreliable, constantly flaking out person, and she's insanely lucky she was born into a wealthy family because otherwise, she would have been homeless long ago. I was essentially raised by my grandparents because my mother never had time for me. And it wasn't because of work. She was busy partying while I was growing up. I even seriously thought as a child that my grandparents were my real parents, and my mother was just an older sister or something. That's how my childhood passed. And when I became a teenager, I had no more illusions about my mother. She was just as carefree as before. Grandpa died when I was in 7th grade, and after that, it was just me and Grandma against the world, including Mom, because most often, she was the hardest to deal with. If you've ever had to explain to your mother, as a 15-year-old schoolgirl, why she shouldn't fly to Iceland with a man she met on Tinder 2 days ago, then you'll understand what my teenage years were like. She's an absolute fool and absolutely doesn't care how her behavior affects other people. She doesn't even care about her own family. Grandma always drilled into me that after she died, I would be alone because I couldn't expect any help from my mother. So I worked my ass off and made something of myself. Now I hold the position of operations director at a company. I earn twice as much as Kevin. He's a sales manager at a small firm, but I never held it against him or tried to belittle him. Partly because I graduated from one of the state's best business schools and interned at the same company where I now work, thanks to Grandma's connections. She taught me to be humble, unlike Kevin and my mother, who acted like stars out of nowhere, even though they hadn't achieved anything yet. Kevin and I met at a mutual friend's birthday party about 5 years ago and immediately became friends. We had a lot in common. We dated for 2 years, and when he proposed, I didn't even think twice and immediately said yes. He seemed like a good man. At least I thought so then. He often joked that I had a hot mom, which probably isn't entirely untrue. I would never call her hot because she's crazy, yes, and besides, she's my mother. But I can't deny that for her age, she looks pretty good. She made so much money peddling so-called feng shui decor to people and then blew it all on cosmetics and Botox. No wonder she looks attractive at her age. I don't want to belittle real decor specialists with professional education at all, and maybe real feng shui actually works, but everything my mother does is a scam for money because she literally knows jack shit about it. I respect people who genuinely know their stuff, but my mother isn't one of them. Plus, she's just a shitty person, so I have every right to speak ill of her. I thought Kevin would be different from all my exes, and that I could trust him, but that backfired too. He joked that my mother was so hot she could pass for my sister. Despite my relationship with her, I laughed because who could possibly imagine that such crap could happen in real life? I actually only kept in touch with my mother for Grandma's sake. She's the one who raised me to be who I am, and I'll be forever grateful to her for that, even if it meant having to put up with her psycho daughter. Grandma could never give up on Mom because she was a kind person and loved her daughter despite all her flaws. But my mother, for all my trying, never managed to love me more than herself. Even after Grandma died almost a year ago, I still tried to stay in touch with my mother. Our relationship was crappy, but I still took care of her, more out of a sense of duty to Grandma. But all that ended 2 weeks ago when Kevin told me about their affair. He sat me down at the table when I got back from a business trip yesterday and, with a completely serious face, declared that he was in love with my mother and that they now wanted to be together. At first, I thought he was joking and laughed, but for the first time ever, he didn't laugh back. Then he started detailing how he and my mother had been fucking behind my back for 3 months. Kevin and I had argued once over some trivial thing, and at that moment, my mother texted him asking how to fix headphones. That's how they started talking, and then it gradually turned into something more than just friendship. Initially, they didn't plan to go that far, but it happened, and they couldn't help themselves. I'm sure Kevin wasn't bothered at all that my mother and I look very similar. I kicked him out on the spot, and he didn't even put up much resistance because he knew perfectly well he could just go to my mommy. I think I polished off a whole bottle of wine then, crying like crazy. I sat there until morning, crying so hard my eyes were swollen twice their size. Around 4:30 a.m., unable to cope with the rage and pain, I decided to text my mother. I was drunk, and that probably pushed me to send that message. I told her a bunch of stuff and wrote that she was a shitty daughter to Grandma and just as shitty a mother to me, and she only got worse with age. Told her she was nothing but a fraud, and as soon as her Botox and fillers wore off, Kevin would see the ugly witch she really is and dump her too. I didn't expect her to reply, but she did, and damn, that message opened my eyes. She replied that she might lose her beauty someday, but she certainly wouldn't lose her bank account, which was about to grow tenfold thanks to Grandma's will. I had completely forgotten about that while grieving her death, but her lawyer had said we'd only know the exact contents of the will after the probate period ended. It takes about 6 to 9 months, and enough time had passed, so we were due to get news soon. Grandma gave the lawyer strict instructions not to reveal to us who got what until the entire period had passed. The only thing we knew was where she wanted to be buried, and that's it. So neither I nor my mother knew what exactly we would get, but since Grandma had a lot of money, assets, and property, we expected a fairly generous inheritance. Well, more precisely, my mother expected it, because when Grandma died, I was only worried about one thing, that she was gone, and now I was truly alone. The contents of the will didn't really concern me because I don't put money above relationships anyway. But Kevin, it turns out, cared about the money. That's why he chose my mother over me. They both expected her share of the inheritance to be bigger than mine. They must have been 100% sure of it because my mother bragged to me as if she'd already found out from the lawyer and knew for sure what she was getting before it was even announced to me. Anyway, I didn't reply to her message and just tried to put it all out of my mind. The very next day, I spoke to my lawyer and said I wanted to file for divorce as soon as possible. A week after Kevin's confession, the papers were ready. Now it was just a matter of waiting for the divorce to be finalized so he could spend the rest of his days with his ex-wife's mother. But a real miracle happened. For that, I am endlessly grateful to Grandma because even after death, she continues to protect me. I had previously asked Grandma's lawyer, the executor of the will, to inform me and my mother separately because I couldn't bear to be in the same room with her and Kevin. And so, 5 days ago, she told me that my mother had already found out what she got, and now it was my turn. I went to her with zero expectations, but when I left, I felt like the happiest person on this damn planet. I got all of Grandma's money, assets, and property, while my mother only got a diamond ring and matching earrings that Grandma wore during her lifetime. That's it. That's all she got. As it turned out, Grandma left everything to me because she had taken care of my mother her whole life. And now that she's almost 50, she's old enough to start taking care of herself. So, paradoxically, Grandma, who always told me I'd be alone after she died, actually made sure I was financially secure so I wouldn't be dependent on inheritance. Whereas that woman, who had counted on Grandma's support her whole pathetic life, was left with nothing. So, essentially, it was my mother who was left alone. It was karma at its finest, most vicious, and I've never felt happier in my life than at that moment. My mother found out about everything just an hour before me, but I didn't know what she would do next. And I was even curious because I was sure that even if my mother didn't try to contact me, Kevin definitely would. And that's exactly what happened. He didn't even wait a decent interval. He texted me the very next day saying he'd made a huge mistake and wanted to come back if I would still have him. Said he and my mother were never right for each other, and that after spending just a few days with her, he realized how good he'd had it with me. Said he understood everything now and wanted to give our marriage a second chance. I literally laughed out loud when I read that pathetic attempt at reconciliation. They apparently had no idea. I already knew my mother got almost nothing. There would be no big inheritance. I thought all day about how to respond and finally just sent him a clown emoji and blocked him. And I was 100% sure he hadn't even told my mother about it. So, to really drive it home, I took a screenshot of his message and sent it to her, but with 3 clown emojis. After that, I turned off my phone because I didn't want to deal with the circus that was bound to follow. Instead, I turned on Netflix and decided to just have a quiet evening, not letting Kevin or my mother ruin my nerves anymore. The next morning, I found out how it all ended. My neighbor's daughter told me everything. By the way, my mother still lives in the house I grew up in. Grandpa left that house to Grandma and his daughter. So after Grandma died, Mom stayed living there. I'm friends with the neighbor's daughter, so she told me everything. Around 10 p.m., she started hearing loud yelling coming from my mother's house. No one in their family went to check because everyone knew my mother, and no one liked her. But then suddenly, there were blood-curdling screams, and that made them go outside. My crazy mother literally threw Kevin out of the house, and he was lying on the sidewalk while she threw anything she could get her hands on at him and screamed the vilest, most disgusting things. Kevin screamed because she grabbed a heavy hardcover book and threw it at him. Unfortunately, it hit him right on the forehead. When the neighbors ran out, he already had a split forehead and was trying to stop the bleeding with his hand. The wound was serious enough. He needed 5 stitches. Knowing that was, to put it mildly, creepy. He even filed a police report against my mother. In the end, she just got a huge fine, but Kevin was genuinely hurt. She, of course, didn't mean for it to go that far, and she wasn't in her right mind at the time, so the cops went easy on her. Plus, she has a great lawyer and is friends with the district attorney's wife. That played a role too. And, of course, as soon as she got home, she immediately blamed everything on me and started sending a bunch of vile messages from her second number, which I hadn't blocked. I tried my best to ignore them, but I still can't help wondering, is it my fault? What Kevin and my mother did to me is unforgivable, of course. But now, I think maybe I should have just been happy with what I had and not tried to meddle in their lives to get back at them. What I did was also out of anger and hurt, and I'm not proud of it. For the record, if I had known things would turn so violently, I would never have sent my mother that screenshot. I just wanted them to feel like shit. It never crossed my mind that someone could actually get hurt. My mother had never attacked anyone before, as far as I knew, so I just couldn't have predicted that. I feel terrible that it turned out that way, and her constant attempts to play the victim and make me out to be the villain only make it worse. Even Kevin is now posting vague quotes about betrayal and other crap, which is supremely ironic in itself. But that's not the point. Now it seems to me like they're just dumping all the blame on me. I don't know. I really am sorry that I interfered to destroy the relationship between my mother and my almost ex-husband just because she bragged about stealing my man thanks to an inheritance she didn't actually have. Well, before we get to the update on this story, I suggest you write in the comments right now what you think about it. Did the author do the right thing, or should she not have interfered in that relationship? Personally, I think she didn't do anything wrong. It's absolutely fine. She sent those clowns, she sent that screenshot, no big deal. That dude is to blame himself for sending her the message. She just sent a screenshot. She didn't really interfere much. She didn't do anything super nasty or harsh. She just forwarded the message. Because essentially, she regrets not being convenient for her mother and her ex-husband. But her mother and ex-husband didn't try to be convenient for the author, yet somehow it's suddenly important to her. Update 1. Guys, a huge thank you for your incredible support in the comments. Thanks for all the kind words, especially to those who wrote about Grandma. Yes, she was special, and I truly believe I was incredibly lucky to have her in my life. I'm really one of the luckiest people alive to have had such an amazing woman as my grandmother in my childhood. That at least somewhat compensates for having such a mother. Now, I no longer feel guilty about what happened because I really didn't do anything particularly terrible. They destroyed my marriage, and I destroyed their relationship. An eye for an eye. It was my mother who lost it and attacked the man she supposedly loves, so I certainly don't feel sorry for her. She's the crazy one here, not me. And she definitely won't make me feel like the villain because everything that happened is entirely on her conscience. Kevin got hurt. Yes, I feel a little sorry for him because violence is unacceptable, but at the same time, he's the same dude who literally cheated on his wife with her own mother. That's disgusting. I don't understand how anyone could think that after something like that, he still has the right to ask to come back to me. I'm sorry he got hurt, but it's not my fault. Not my fault and not my problem. So I decided to block them all everywhere I could. I've seriously started thinking about a restraining order because my mother has genuinely lost her mind. Who knows what's in her head and what she might do next? If she's angry at me for destroying her love, she might very well turn on me next. I don't want that, but I also don't want to abandon everything I've achieved over the years and leave just because my mother is a psycho monster. So a restraining order is probably the best way to protect myself from her. I hope it doesn't come to that though. Looks like I'm going to have to file for that restraining order after all. I completely ignored my mother for almost 2 weeks and had even started to move on a little. Kevin accepted my divorce petition and didn't contest it. It seemed like things were slowly getting better. With therapy, I was planning to finally let go of this whole nasty situation. But unfortunately, my mother decided to make my life sweet again. Yesterday, I saw her in my front yard, right by my front door. I had just gotten home after a long workday. I told her to get lost, or I'd call the police right from my car, but she didn't even budge. Instead, she said I could do whatever I wanted, but she wasn't leaving until she talked to me about the inheritance. I said she could talk from a distance because I was genuinely curious what she wanted to tell me, and then she flat out stated it. She wants half of everything I inherited because it's only fair since Grandma was her mother. I just laughed in her face and told her she was the last creature who had any right to talk about fairness. Then I told her to get lost because I wasn't giving her anything, and I dialed 911 in case she decided to do something. She glared at me hatefully and walked to my car, and I immediately closed the windows. And I did it just in time because as soon as she got close, she kicked the passenger door with her foot and dented it. I only noticed the dent when I got out of the car. I didn't get out until I saw her get in her car and drive a safe distance away. I took pictures immediately as evidence, and I already have the footage from my home security cameras, which clearly shows her doing it. Then I called my lawyer, told her what happened, and said I now definitely wanted to file for a restraining order against my mother, so that's now in process too. I tried to file a police report, but since she's friends with the district attorney's wife, the station chief said his hands were tied. He couldn't do anything. Well, screw him then, because at least I have the security footage, and that can't be faked. Her face and everything she did are clearly visible. I even downloaded the video and saved it on my laptop so nothing gets lost. The next couple of days will be hellish, running around to court so much, but finally, I'll be rid of these people. Update 3. Hello everyone. I've been completely swamped lately with the divorce and all this legal red tape. Right now, we're in the process of negotiating the settlement terms, and it's infuriating. But last week, I finally managed to get the restraining order against my mother, so that's done. Phew. Kevin and his lawyer spouted a bunch of lies, so I'm now gathering all possible evidence of his adultery for the next meeting. Hopefully, it will finally be over after that. All of this is incredibly exhausting, but I go to therapy regularly to cope with the rage and not let it destroy my daily life. If I've learned anything from all this, it's that I definitely don't want to end up like my crazy mother. Well, that's it. I'm waiting for your opinion on the story in the comments. Thanks for watching this video to the end. Check out our previous video, which you'll see right here. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, and good luck.